So two players that have been holding out for quite some time both got extended or at least a new contract today. But the lack of clarity on one player's total guarantees and the lack of any guarantees past this season for the other means, try as they might, the NFL teams are the ones with the leverage and in control, and both of these players might have wasted a lot of valuable time. Well, in today's video, I'll break those situations down, talk about a plethora of trades that went down, and so much more right after. Alright, with the preseason now officially in the books and the regular season less than 2 weeks away, there's a lot of shuffling going on with teams' rosters as they get ready for the cut-down deadline that's tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. So we saw a lot of moves happening over the weekend, including some surprising veterans being released and a handful of trades going down. Let's start with some trade news first, because the Philadelphia Eagles were going ham yesterday, making not one, not two, but 3 trades. Yesterday evening, they acquired offensive tackle Fred Johnson from the Jags for a 7th-round pick. Johnson spent part of 2022, then all of 2023 and 2024 with Philly, so he's a familiar face and is well accustomed to their offense already. So one lineman came in and another went out as they then shipped tackle Darian Kinnard to the Packers for a 6th-rounder. Kinnard has been a career backup, but this is insane. He's one of just 2 players in NFL history to win 3 consecutive Super Bowls. He was with the Chiefs, who drafted him for Super Bowls 57 and 58, then was with the Eagles last year for Super Bowl 59. So maybe the Packers just acquired him for the good luck. Okay, probably not. But before we get to the other deal that the Eagles made, it's worth mentioning that they surprisingly released guard Kenyon Green today. I say it's surprising because they acquired him and a 5th-round pick from the Texans earlier this offseason in exchange for safety CJ Gardner-Johnson and a 6th-round pick, a guy who started for them at safety in 2024. Now, neither is on the roster, but they did get that 5th-round pick, so there is that, I guess. I think they saved more money by moving off of CJ Gardner-Johnson in future years, so that also played a role as well. Okay, now the final trade for the Eagles, just to provide some context here, their backup quarterback Tanner McKee reportedly suffered a fractured thumb during practice last week. Thankfully, it's not major. It's just the top of the thumb, but it is on his throwing hand, okay? So at the moment, there's no clear-cut timeline for him to return, and with that being the case, Philly went out and traded for another backup in Sam Howell. Ian Rappaport did actually say that even without the injury to McKee, this trade would have likely happened anyway, but Philly sent the Vikings a 2026 5th-round pick and a 2027 7th-round pick in exchange for Howell and a 2026 6th-rounder. Following the trade, Philly waived Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who was fighting for the QB3 job, and today we found out that they also waived 6th-round rookie Kyle McCord, though they may try and sneak him onto the practice squad if he can clear waivers. As for the Vikings, the belief around Minnesota was that Sam Howell was likely a cut candidate anyway, so the fact that they recouped some draft capital is a W. They now have an extra 3rd-round pick and 2 extra 5th-rounders in 2026. At least that's what's projected for them via some compensatory picks. But with them being in the market for a veteran receiver, they should have plenty of ammo to pull off a deal. And quickly after the Sam Howell trade, the Vikings agreed to terms with the former Eagle-in-Chief, among many other teams, quarterback Carson Wentz. Obviously, he spent last year backing up Patrick Mahomes, and now he'll spend 2025 behind J.J. McCarthy. The Vikings also released Brett Rippon, which means their quarterback room is expected to look like McCarthy, Wentz, and the undrafted free agent Max Brosmer. And from here, I had a whole segment scripted about, will the Cleveland Browns end up keeping 4 quarterbacks on their roster because they have Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and then both of their rookie draft picks in Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. The Browns have been saying, yeah, we are going to be keeping 4, or we are content with keeping 4. So I broke down the entire situation and why they could, I guess, keep 4. Then I talked about the Raiders needing a quarterback. Aiden O'Connell is dealing with a wrist injury that is going to sideline him for 6 to 8 weeks, so the Raiders were in need of a QB2. Well, I scrapped all that because right before we were going to export this video, a trade did indeed happen between the Browns and the Raiders. It all makes sense. The Browns are trading Kenny Pickett to the Raiders for a 5th-round pick in 2026. Pickett is now getting traded for the 3rd time in his NFL career, and the Browns are going to get a 5th-round pick from the Raiders after sending a 5th-round pick to the Eagles as a part of acquiring Kenny Pickett back in March. Absolutely insane. I like this for the Raiders. You need quality QB2 depth, so that's what Kenny Pickett is going to give you. Again, it's QB2 depth Nothing overly concerning. The Browns, meanwhile, don't have to figure out this whole quarterback fiasco carousel, all of it between the media frenzy and all that's going on there. You've got 3 quarterbacks, really 4. Here's the thing. Joe Flacco is 40, not getting any younger, probably not playing next year for them if I had to put money on it. Deshaun Watson, he tore his Achilles twice. I don't know if that guy's ever playing football again, okay? Well, then you have Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. One of those guys can now potentially develop into your future starting quarterback, but you now don't have to move on from either of them, and they can both sit on the roster if the Browns are comfortable with holding on to 3 quarterbacks. If they were good with holding on to 4 last year, I think they would be more than happy to hold on to 3 this year, especially considering both of those quarterbacks are on rookie deals, a 3rd and a 5th round pick. None of those contracts are going to break the bank. So all in all, both sides are happy here. The Raiders get a QB2 that might only end up needing to be a QB3 once Aiden O'Connell returns from injury. The Browns offload one of those quarterbacks for a 5th round pick swap. And here we are. And then let's take this to Houston, because there's an injury situation with Joe Mixon that is reaching a pretty concerning level in my opinion. Mixon has been on the non-football injury list since July with an ankle foot injury, so he hasn't practiced or participated in training camp, and the Texans have held their cards close to the vest and not really given the public many updates as far as what the heck is actually going on. Some people actually think it's a more significant injury than they're letting on, and today we found out that Mixon will not be activated off the NFI list before tomorrow's deadline, which means he'll be out for at least the first 4 games of the season. It's unfortunate, but the writing was on the wall based on whispers around the league. This is nothing concrete, but some even think that Mixon might never play again, though that is obviously worst case scenario, and I hope that is not what ends up happening here. Regardless, Texans reporter Aaron Wilson said it's been a long and complicated rehab process for Mixon, in which he's seen specialists, received shockwave treatment, and even multiple injections. He's had months to rest and rehab, and it still hasn't improved to the point to be out there working with the team. So let's see what happens with Mixon after the first 4 weeks, and I think every Texans fan is hoping he's able to return. With Mixon out, though, Dameon Pierce and Nick Chubb figure to handle the bulk of the workload, with 4th-round rookie Woody Marks likely being in the mix as well. Next up, the hold-in is officially over for the Commanders as they are signing Terry McLaurin to a 3-year, $96 million extension. They came to an agreement on this morning, and if you combine that extension with the 1 year he had left on his previous contract, it's basically a 4-year, $120 million deal for McLaurin. Not bad at all. He didn't surpass DK Metcalf's APY, which he reportedly wanted, but he's still tied for the 6th highest paid receiver in the league, along with A.J. Brown. And maybe even more impressive, but Scary Terry's new contract will pay him the most money ever earned by a wideout entering their age 30 season. So it's a win for Terry and a win for the Commanders, who get their star wideout locked up through the 2028 season. At least that's what it looks like right now. But I have my reservations because there have been no guarantees reported on this contract. I'm recording this at 4 p.m. and so it's been hours. No guarantees have been listed, so it makes me feel like it's going to be a pretty low amount of guarantees if you compare it to the $96 million that is reported, and therefore it'll end up having quite a bit of funny money there at the end. Regardless of that, I'm still happy for Scary Terry, and it's a well-deserved payday as he is just one of 4 players in the NFL that have surpassed 1,000 receiving yards in each of the last 5 seasons, with the others being Mike Evans, Justin Jefferson, and Devontae Adams. Pretty good company there, and what makes this even more ridiculous is that Terry caught passes from 11 different quarterbacks over those 5 years, though of course he's now catching passes from one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the league. Now, speaking of wide receivers and contract disputes, Raiders wideout Jakobi Meyers requested a trade today. Currently, Jakobi is due $10.76 million this year, which is also the final year of his current deal. So he and the Raiders have been attempting to negotiate a new deal because obviously he feels like he's worth more than the $10.76 million he's due. He's been producing at a pretty high level as well, so I get it, but no dice at this point in time. So he wants out, but Vegas has no plans to trade him, according to Ian Rappaport. I don't know why you would do that. He is their wide receiver 1. Obviously, Brock Bowers is going to be their number 1 producing pass catcher, but he's still wide receiver 1 on the roster. The Raiders also have the leverage here. I mean, if Jakobi chooses to sit out of regular season games, he'll be forfeiting game checks which would add up very quickly here. It's understandable, though, why he wants to get paid. He had over 1,000 yards receiving and 87 catches, so he wants more, probably deserves more. The problem is the timing of this trade request is very late, to say the least. If he's willing to be traded to a team that doesn't extend him right away, then I could see it possibly happening, but this late in the offseason, not a lot of teams have budgeted and prepared for the possibility of trading for and extending a wide receiver who in all likelihood would be making over $20 million per year on his next contract. I'm fascinated to see where all of this goes. He's clearly underpaid, but it doesn't sound like the Raiders have been able to meet his demands. The team needs him, though. Again, he's going to be their wide receiver one again, behind Brock Bowers in production, but he's reportedly built up a good rapport with Geno Smith this offseason, and after him, the depth at wide receiver gets a little spooky. Right now, their top 4 receivers are Jakobi Meyers, Trey Tucker, Dante Thornton Jr., and Jack Bech. Thornton and Bech are both rookies, a 5th and a 3rd rounder respectively, and Trey Tucker has less than 900 receiving yards over his first 2 seasons combined. All that to say, they really cannot afford to lose Jakobi, which is why they probably need to just pay that man something, but will they? That is the question of the day. So while we await to see if anything comes from the Jakobi trade request, the Raiders are not waiting to add another receiver. Late this afternoon, it was announced they signed free agent wide receiver Amari Cooper. Coop was a free agent after going from the Browns to the Bills via a trade in the middle of the season last year. In between his time with both of those teams, he had a really down year production-wise, yes, catching just 44 passes for 574 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's the lowest amount of catches, yards, and touchdowns he's ever had in a season in his entire 10-year career. For what it's worth, though, he did miss a couple of games with a wrist injury, then all the Bills starters rested Week 18, so he did miss out on 3 games. He's healthy now, though, and while he just turned 31 years old in June, he went over 1,000 yards in 2023 and 2022 with the Cleveland Browns, and we all know their quarterback room has been pretty inconsistent, and that's putting it nicely, and therefore, I still think Cooper has some gas left in the tank. So now, he's in Vegas, joining up with Jakobi if he stays, Brock Bowers, and Ashton Jeanty, and will obviously be catching passes from Geno Smith. And then another player who signed a 1-year deal today is Bengals pass rusher Trey Hendrickson. And yeah, you heard that right, it's a 1-year deal. Reports began heading in a quote-unquote positive direction earlier today when Jordan Schultz reported that both sides have recently re-engaged in talks about a new deal. However, with the main problem being an argument over guaranteed money, Trey Hendrickson basically wanted guaranteed money past this year, and since he did not want to do that at all, they ended up winning, talking about the team because they now don't have to worry about any guaranteed money after the 2025 season. Basically, it's a problem for another day because they ultimately could still franchise tag him. On the flip side, Trey Hendrickson does at least get a very well-deserved raise. He said all along he wasn't going to play on his $16 million salary this year, and so he got a $14 million pay raise, boosting his 2025 salary from $16 million to $30 million. That's more in line with his high level of play, to be sure, but still has him just outside of the top 5 in annual salary amongst all pass rushers this year. But hey, he does get almost double what he was going to make, and in theory plays somewhere else in 2026 that might value his services more because he's probably done negotiating with that team. However, as I said before, the Bengals can still franchise tag him in 2026, which is looking to be a very unrealistic amount. It's $36 million because it's either a 20% raise of his $30 million salary or an average of the top 5 highest paid at the position, whichever is greater. Well, $36 million is greater, which is a piss ton of money. We'll see what happens there long term. It's rather disappointing because this whole time, Trey Hendrickson wanted guaranteed money past this year. He thought he had earned it and deserved it based on his production over the last couple of years, but since he didn't move, didn't budge, in the end, they win. So we'll see what happens long term, but for now, I think Bengals fans have to be happy that the holdout is over and Hendrickson will soon be joining that D-line that includes the somewhat recently returned Shamar Stewart from his holdout as well. Both of those, at the end of the day, seemed almost pointless. Next up, here's a few pieces of good news for you. Lamar Jackson went back to practice today after getting his foot stepped on last week. He missed a couple of practices, but an MRI showed no damage. ultimately avoiding disaster, and Lamar was back out there today to prove just that. Then Rams left tackle Alaric Jackson practiced in full today, which is the first time he's done that since being diagnosed with blood clots. He had the same issue back in 2022 and missed 9 games because of it. The issue then popped back up in June, but he's been taking care of it and is expected to be a full go for week 1. Great news for the Rams because QB1 Matt Stafford is also trending towards being good to go week 1. He continues to log practices after missing the entirety of training camp with an aggravated disc in his back. Then Cowboys cornerback Trayvon Diggs was activated off the PUP list today. He tore his ACL in his left knee in 2023 and missed 15 games, then had another issue pop up in that same knee last season, which required surgery. That's what he's been working back from. And while coming off the PUP list is a good sign, it doesn't guarantee that he's going to be ready by week 1 or anything like that. They're going to monitor him throughout practice the next couple of weeks, but being that they play next Thursday in just 10 days, probably makes him a long shot to play in this one at this point. His teammate Micah Parsons wasn't out there today at practice as he's still holding in, but reports said he was in the building. Things have gotten pretty ugly on that front, with Jerry Jones continuing to spew some ridiculous things in the media, but what else is new? No telling if a deal gets done or if Micah plays without one, but we'll have to keep tabs on that situation for sure. But hey, make sure to let me know your thoughts on the Micah Parsons situation, as well as the Trey Hendrickson new 1-year deal, no guaranteed money past this year. What do you think about that? Bengals win, Hendrickson? Let me know it all in the comments down below. And with that, I'll see y'all next time.